So, what happens when your greatest strength becomes your biggest problem? Today, we're digging into Warren Buffett's own letters to his partners to deconstruct that exact moment, the moment his winning strategy just stopped working and forced him to completely change the rules of his own game.
It really all starts right here with this number, 1,156%. I mean, just let that sink in. That was the staggering cumulative return of the Buffett Partnership in just its first decade.
And to give you some context for how wild that is, while the Dow Jones put up a perfectly respectable 123% return, Buffett delivered nearly 10 times that. He wasn't just beating the market, he was playing a different sport altogether.
I mean, that kind of performance is the stuff of legend. But it wasn't some kind of magic trick. Nope, it was a very specific, very disciplined strategy. So the big question is, what was the secret sauce?
Well, lucky for us, we don't really have to guess. His letters to his partners from that era give us the exact blueprint. Okay, let's dive into this.
In his letter from January of '67, Buffett just lays it all out with this incredible transparency. He breaks down his performance for the previous year into 4 really distinct investment categories.
So, you can see he had these 4 buckets for his investments. And while they all did pretty well, one category was the absolute powerhouse, generals, relatively undervalued. This was where he put most of his money, and look at that. It generated over half of the entire year's gain. Just incredible.
And this chart really tells the whole story, doesn't it? This wasn't just your standard diversification. Not at all. This was about making highly concentrated, high-conviction bets in a few businesses that he understood inside and out, and that he knew were on sale.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Even inside all of this amazing success, there were these deep frustrations. And one case study he shares reveals this conflict he was feeling between a good short-term profit and what could have been massive long-term value.
He had this fantastic way of putting it. He said, "I don't delight in going around making molehills out of mountains." He's basically describing a situation where a quick win actually felt like a loss because he saw the potential for a mountain and had to settle for a molehill.
So here's the play-by-play of what happened. He finds this great undervalued company and starts quietly buying up shares. His whole plan is to patiently build a huge position over a couple of years, but then bam! Out of nowhere, another company makes a public offer, the stock price shoots up, and he's forced to sell way earlier than he wanted to, for a nice but kind of premature profit.
And right here, this is the crucial point. For a true value investor like Buffett, the scarcest resource isn't money, it's a great idea. So a quick win that takes one of his few brilliant ideas off the board, well, in his mind, that's actually a strategic loss.
Now, this whole experience wasn't just some one-off thing. No, it was a symptom, a sign of a much bigger shift happening in the market. And just 9 months later, in another incredible letter, Buffett explained exactly why the game he had totally mastered was changing for good.
He laid out 4 big reasons. The whole market environment was different. Investors were becoming, in his words, hyper-reactive. His own pile of money had gotten so big it was actually becoming a problem. And, just as important, his own personal goals were starting to shift.
He explained this shift perfectly by talking about 2 schools of thought. His bread and butter, as he put it, was the quantitative school, finding those statistical bargains where the numbers just hit you over the head with a baseball bat. But he was admitting those kinds of deals were basically gone. And he was brutally honest with his partners about this new world. That steady flow of obvious, easy-to-spot bargains he'd built his entire record on, that had slowed to a mere trickle. And he warned them, a trickle has a really good chance of drying up completely.
As the market got more and more speculative, chasing hot trends, what he called fashion investing, he just drew a line in the sand. He basically said, look, I refuse to play a game I don't get, a game I don't believe in, and if I won't do it with my own money, you can be damn sure I'm not going to do it with yours.
So all of this, it's all leading up to what he did next. And honestly, it's one of the most intellectually honest moves you will ever see in the entire world of finance.
I mean, think about it. What do you do when the environment that made you a superstar completely changes? Do you chase the hot new thing? Pretend you can keep delivering the same impossible results? No, Buffett did something way more radical.
He publicly lowered his own benchmark for success. His famous, long-standing goal of beating the Dow by 10% a year? Gone. Retired. The new goal was so much more modest. Try to make 9% a year or beat the Dow by 5%, whichever was less.
This decision, right here, was the ultimate act of discipline. It was him powerfully declaring that he would rather underperform for a while by sticking to what he knew than risk blowing up his partner's money by chasing a strategy that just wasn't him. He was staying squarely in his circle of competence.
And really, what this whole story shows is that Buffett's true genius wasn't just about picking stocks, it was his incredible discipline, his relentless intellectual honesty, and maybe most of all, his willingness to change his own definition of success when the facts on the ground had clearly, fundamentally changed.
And that kind of leaves us with a really big question. Not just for investing, but for anything, right? It's easy to stick to a goal when everything's going your way. But what do you do when the world changes around you? How do you redefine winning?